Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rewind-A-SmackDown. I'm John Pollock. He is Wai Ting, and we are live moments after SmackDown from the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. I really wish they would have let us know what the attendance was. That would have been nice.
Um, yeah, sure.
I think Michael Cole had an edict to get that number out every 10 minutes on the show tonight.
Listen, 70 weeks without one of these numbers to brag about, I don't necessarily blame them. This was the draw of this particular episode.
It definitely was. So, welcome everybody to the show. Thank you for joining us, whether it is live or you are listening after the fact. We are not going to be going through news tonight because we did a bonus show on Friday afternoon covering a lot of the major news items from Friday, including the ticket response for AEW going to Arthur Ashe Stadium in September, the television number they drew for Fyter Fest, the report on Bill Goldberg coming in, and looking ahead at this weekend. We've got Slammiversary. We have Money in the Bank, a lot of stuff happening, and it's all up there. YouTube.com/postwrestling or in your free post-wrestling feed. You can get it all. Bonus content from myself and Wai. And let's all give a round of applause to the man that puts all the graphics together for us. He is Wai Ting. I saw today when you posted this, a match that now I really want to see, and that is Bill Goldberg versus Darby Allin.
Oh my, yes. It's interesting what thoughts come to mind when stories collide on a certain day, and I'm forced to pick a few individuals to place together in a single JPEG. The dream matches. Sure, I would love to see that too.
Oh, it would be what a collision that would be. But there you go. You can check out all of the news. I'm sure we will be discussing Money in the Bank on tonight's show, and of course, we'll be opening up the phone lines. So all subjects are welcome. We will be getting to your calls earlier than usual as we run through SmackDown. But how are you, Wai?
Doing well, yeah. Since we last spoke, I went out for a nice bike ride myself, my first of
Oh,
the
nice.
summer, actually. Had a nice coffee, so enjoyed myself in time for SmackDown. You?
I've been riding my bike quite a bit of late.
Cool,
It's been
nice.
good.
It's good weather today to ride.
It is. It is. It's going to pour on Saturday, it looks like. So I don't know if there
Okay.
will be any bike riding going on. Since we spoke on Wednesday, I had my most ambitious outing since the pandemic began, around the most amount of people I've been around in a year and a half, venturing out to Canada's Wonderland,
Oh,
a landmark here in Canada, the land of
ne
wonder.
of course, the happiest place in Canada.
That is not its tagline nor anything it lives up to, but it is our amusement park by default because there's no Canadian National Exhibition this summer. So you want to go on rides and get dizzy and feel sick, it's Canada's Wonderland or bust.
Yeah, I highly doubt that Canada will ever get its own Disneyland. We're never gonna get a Universal Studios. We're not even gonna get a Six Flags. So what we have to make do with is Canada's Wonderland. And from what I understand, John, this was Max's first time at Canada's Wonderland.
It was. We took both of our children, so it was both of their first visits. One had a great time. The other probably didn't really understand where she was, but it was interesting to go because as much as like it was like fun to go take our kids, but at the same time, also kind of just see how this whole thing is going to operate. Like they have a giant reduction in the numbers. Like you have a time that you are to show up at. They don't have an exit time. So you get there, you can stay as long as the park is open, but they have significant, like all the indoor things that you can do there are closed pretty much. And the rides they've limited. Like if there are like 8 cars for a roller coaster, like half of them are being utilized. They have, I was actually very impressed with the setup they had. Like there was stuff you can tell, like some of these people, it's like their job and it's probably their first job and it's probably overwhelming to be processing all of this. Like you could see it's a little disorganized, but overall, dude, a ton of people wearing masks and such. Like it was people that I think understood that, okay, we are moving forward, but at the same time, not being like, this is not just, hey, we're going back 2 years into the past. Like it was, I felt like comfortable in this environment. So
Hmm.
overall, it was like a pretty good time.
That sounds excellent. That
Yeah.
sounds fantastic. I mean, it's an industry that I'm sure, has been sort of really, really hurting. So like, was there like any sort of cleaning process in between?
Yep, there was. I saw multiple times where they were wiping down the rides in between, not between everyone, but there was like I definitely saw that they had the markers out for everything to encourage people to be 2 meters apart from one another. Everyone was
Arrows
obeying
on the
it.
floor?
There weren't arrows, but there were lanes actually for one section that everyone was abiding by. That part impressed me. Like I was expecting it to just be insanity at Canada's Wonderland, and it was far from it. So that part was enjoyable, and apparently, like it is booked up throughout the summer. Like it is pretty tough. They're making it very easy for people. Where if you get a season's pass, it works for this summer and for next summer. So I think they're really trying to get people to commit to a season's pass. And what they have now introduced, Way, you can get a day pass for a drink that comes with free refills all day, or you can jump up and for $33, dude, a season's pass for a drink. You can get free refills every visit you go this year for 33 bucks.
Sounds like a decent deal to me. I mean,
I
depends
guess
how
so. You
often
just have to show a card. You get free drinks. I'm like, this is the
Yeah.
smart way to go. And for those that are not the fans of like the food at Wonderland, it is you pretty much have to take out a second mortgage on your home to go eat at Canada's Wonderland. So they
Uh-huh.
makes an option available to you where you have unlimited anything for this price. It probably works out if you're going to have any kind of frequency of this place.
It's the gym membership mentality. You probably won't use it that much, but the idea of the value is what draws you in. So, did you get it, John?
No, no, I did not get it. Yeah, my final story of Canada's Wonderland. I said a while ago that I was out in Toronto and saw somebody wearing a evil Bullet Club shirt, and I thought that is the strangest wrestling T-shirt to see in the wild, so to speak, here in Toronto. But there I am at Canada's Wonderland, and there was this gentleman who I would peg him in his mid to late 50s. Dude sporting a Frank Gotch T-shirt.
I had no idea that they made Frank Gotch t-shirts.
I saw this. This is me talking. I was this close to going up to him,
Oh
but
my God,
I
yeah.
was still. We're in a pandemic still,
Oh
but
yeah.
nonetheless, I was impressed that I'm looking at this guy wearing a Frank Gotch shirt.
What would that conversation have been like? What would you have said?
Dude, if I knew who that was on his shirt, this guy's actively wearing a Frank Gotch shirt. He's pretty much screaming for John Pollock to come into orbit, is he not?
He's asking for some sort of wrestling journalist slash historian to come up to talk to him because I don't know how many other people would recognize it. What did the shirt actually look like? I'm trying to look online.
It was just like a cutout of Frank Gotch with the font across Gotch, and
Okay,
that was it. It was a
wonderful.
very basic shirt.
Wow, tremendous.
Like this guy has to have gone to like Waterloo, Iowa over the years.
You think? Yeah, you think he's like a wrestling, like amateur wrestling, or like pro wrestling? Like what? Like what?
He was
Where
like
would he have watched?
he was like a sturdy dude, like older gentleman, but looks like a guy that was probably an athlete. So I could see him having amateur wrestling roots. Yes,
Interesting.
that would
Wow.
be my
Cool.
prognostication from 100 feet away.
Could have had a real life interaction with this man.
I would have just wandered by and said, Hackenschmidt. Just see what the reaction is. Like, there's no way that dude has ever had anyone interact with him about that shirt, unless he's like
Probably
wandered
not.
downtown into like passed by Greg Oliver. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, yeah. Two people in Toronto would have recognized it, and you were one of them.
Anyway, that was my trip to Wonderland. It was a fun time.
Sounded like a great time. You might have had a better time than Max, seeing the Frank
No,
Gotch shirt.
he mastered these bumper cars. It was honestly impressive to watch because these bumper cars, I remember going on, not these specific version of bumper cars, but they would be a pain to steer these things. And he goes on the first time and he's like getting stuck. And then he wants to go on again. And dude, by number 2, then he went on a third time. Dude, he was in control of this car and just zipping around. nailing kids. I was really proud. It was like, look at him. He's like driving this thing and he's doing circles around some of these kids.
Chris Leone. I only go to the chat room when there's something interesting. Chris Leone comments, Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah.
So the man already has a nickname.
There you have it.
Very impressive.
Okay, let's move on to SmackDown from the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas on Friday night. The first live edition of SmackDown in front of fans since March the 6th of 2020. And worth noting is that prior to SmackDown, we had two dark matches. Very interesting here. We had Xia Li versus Aaliyah, and then Davey Boy Smith Jr. teaming with Austin Theory against Odyssey Jones, who was just introduced as part of the Breakout Tournament, and Zion Quinn, who is the former rugby player Daniel Vidot that signed back in 2018. Interesting to see the names that WWE is taking a look at, especially in the case of Odyssey Jones and Zion Quinn. Certainly there is a common denominator in a lot of these about big dudes. Like Daniel Vidot, this is according to Cage Match, has had 31 matches. Odyssey Jones has had 8.
Interesting.
So it is interesting, but obviously Davey Boy Smith Jr. being the notable one there.
Yeah, it seems like, everybody that had a tryout either seems to maybe fit the bill of what they require right now, whether it be fresh faces in their women's division or perhaps, in the case of Davey Boy Smith, maybe just an addition. I mean, the rumor for the longest time was that he would be added to the UK roster. Do you see that still being the case?
I just don't know how much you're like, if you're going to the trouble of signing a Davey Boy Smith Jr., is that the best outlet to be putting him in? I would look very much at like what is like, obviously we're seeing like B Priestley designated for the NXT UK brand, but to me, like a Davey Boy Smith Jr., guy's 35. It's like, if we're signing him, if we're committing to him, and Davey Boy Smith Jr. is not someone who is lacking options out there. To me, it's let's maximize our investment and at bare minimum get him to NXT, if not the main roster. And if not, why are we signing him?
Yeah, I can understand both cases. There's an argument to be made that his name means more in NXT UK than it would in NXT. And if he is to maximize his value, if you were to consider either brand of NXT to be, what is it? What do they call it?
A priority?
No. Like sort of a developmental. If you consider either one of them developmental, I mean, I think he would be a really big fish in that pond. I mean, a DBS Walter match, I think would get great attention. As opposed to like DBS in NXT, I think he would do well too, but I also feel like he would probably get lost among, some of the names that are already there. So I think it depends on your aim, but perhaps a guy like him, his ultimate destination is probably still main roster.
They opened the show with the video that they put out earlier this week. It was a really nice put together video of the different talent inside of empty buildings. And then you contrast that to some of the major moments over the years, different WrestleManias, other crowd moments like Reigns the night after Mania 33, Kofi Mania, the Elias Owens segment in Seattle.
They singled that one out. I mean, the rest of them are like, big, I would say, WrestleMania moments or like moments that they've replayed many times. But like Elias in Seattle is one that, I mean, certainly I think most of us remember, but not necessarily one that gets that same celebration all the time. So it was actually cool to see that they singled that one out.
It was a great moment when, I mean, it was just a crowd totally taking over a segment in a good way. And that's how you make these segments stand the test of time, is inserting them into stuff like this so that the audience remembers them. So nice video to open things. Mm-hmm. And then Michael Cole welcomes us back for the first time in 70 weeks, minus WrestleMania. And for the first of many, many times, gives out the attendance figure of 14,496, which is probably pretty close to an accurate number. We knew there were over 14,000 tickets out in the market. Apparently 11,000 paid or so. So this was a legit sellout at the Toyota Center, which has been a very strong market for the UFC. They sold out 262 back in May immediately when they went there. They're going back there in a couple of weeks for the biggest of big interim heavyweight title fights between Derek Lewis and Cyril Gane. And AEW is
All right.
going to not this building, but in Houston in August as well. So Houston is getting a lot of wrestling and MMA.
Very impressive.
And out comes Vince McMahon and this audience. First of all, it was a really cool scene when they went in and had the big overhead shot of the crowd and just not seeing that bloody Thunderdome. It was quite the spectacle to see this full house and real people.
Real people. You know, it in this in one sense it felt unfamiliar. At the same time, it felt very familiar. Like this is the way it was supposed to be. Like this was like I was watching an episode of Raw probably from like, 2 years ago. So, it was nice. It was really kind.
Vince McMahon comes out, the place goes insane, and he keeps it brief. Where the hell have you been? And he leaves. And this was the best Vince McMahon promo in years.
I thought it was awesome. I thought it was hilarious. Says one line, gets out of here. Senior citizen Vince just doesn't feel like he gives a shit. It was great.
Now get those 18 to 49 numbers up on Monday. Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman come out. We had the giant Roman hologram. This thing roared.
So there is a new set, and the new set basically consists of a giant screen. The whole thing is a screen now. And beyond that, I mean, I would say that
We have like the virtual screens now that are there for the television audience to see that they show the recaps and stuff of.
Stephanie mentioned that as being sort of one of the new changes, and I hate the virtual set stuff. I think it looks so corny and cheesy, but you had a bit more of it on this show.
So Reigns and Heyman are out along with the Usos, and we're starting off with a 6-man tag. Everyone got big receptions, but the largest for Edge. This was nuts. This was like a Austin era pop that Edge got coming out. It was nuts.
It felt like his Rumble surprise return, and it's complete with that same energy on his face, like that you saw at that Rumble return when he came back out of retirement. Usually I would skip entrances on these shows, but on this show, each one of these felt novel and felt really awesome. So, even for Roman, especially for Roman Reigns, for guys like him, even though like they had WrestleMania, I mean, this really felt like it's the first full crowd. To me, like it's a moment like today that really felt like your proof of concept of how well everything has worked up until this point.
It was, some of these entrances, you could see how big this was for the performers. Like there were like the reactions from Edge, from Owens. It was like, dude, they were suddenly like 14 years old again coming out to this crowd.
Yeah.
And as they noted, this was Dominik Mysterio's first match in front of fans, which is wild.
I mean, if you don't count the custody of Dominik match.
Well, that wasn't a match. He wasn't in that match, was he?
He had a part in the match.
Okay, but this is his first official match as being recognized.
I like to count the custody of Dominik match.
Jay jumps Edge, who is focusing on Roman. Edge lifted Jimmy up, and Ray hit a seated senton, and then Dom leaps into a cabrata, and the crowd chants, Dominik, Dominik. Cool. The star that's been under their nose this whole time. We nearly got a Ring of Honor reference here, as Pat McAfee noted that Jimmy and Jay can be lethal.
Oh, interesting.
Reigns yanked Dominik to the floor and powerbombed him on the desk. That set up the commercial. Ray is in, seated senton, tornado DDT on Jay, but Jimmy makes the save, and Dominik is driven into the post by Reigns. Reigns cuts off Ray from hitting a 619, upsetting the crowd. Edge spears Roman on the floor, and then Jay kicks out of an O'Connor roll, sending Ray into Jimmy, who nails Ray and gets rolled up by Jay in 9 minutes and 23 seconds. Part of me would be dumbfounded that you couldn't have the baby faces win the first match back for this crowd. However, this segment, the baby faces went over in this segment. They just lost the match because this post-match was all about getting your pops in. Edge took out the Usos with chairs. Then Reigns hit a Superman punch, holds up the belt. But then as he grabs a chair, Edge spears him crossface using the metal part of the chair. Reigns is tapping, and then Edge holds up the belt and stares at it while Pat McAfee asks, will we see that on Sunday? I would suggest no, since we're getting the visual now. and that ended the segment. So little baffling that we would have the heels win, but really this segment was about getting your babyface end to this segment with Edge standing tall with the belt.
Mm. Yeah, it was a short match, but I wasn't dissatisfied. I thought it gave us enough to start the show off with some great crowd reactions to start. It made all the baby faces feel like huge baby faces, including Edge, who I thought looked awesome in this match. The heels seemed like really big heels. Everybody came across as a star. This was like the first SmackDown match in front of this crowd. They were ready to go crazy, and the segment provided something for them to go crazy over.
It did. And we should mention, we did have this in the news update, but the Usos challenging the Mysterios on Sunday on the kickoff show for the SmackDown tag title. So that has been added to the pay-per-view. And I mean, just to follow up on last week, I mean, now that we are a week and a half removed, like it does seem that it is just, we are moving forward regarding Jimmy Uso. Like these are our plans. The real world is not affecting those plans and we're going ahead.
Yeah, and today the crowd didn't react any differently from what you would expect through storyline. Either it's something that they don't recognize or they simply don't care about. So they're going to proceed as planned, and you know, behind the scenes, and who knows what's going on. But beyond that, I thought, for me, it was a really interesting test of how Edge was going to be perceived in front of this crowd. I didn't know how hot he was going to be as a lead babyface, at least for this pay-per-view. And this segment made him look like the biggest babyface on the entire show. Tells you the crowd doesn't care about that Manny loss, and that chair crossface spot is incredibly over.
Backstage, Edge is with the Mysterios. Ray's complaining about getting hit by the illegal man. And Kayla interviews Edge about Sunday. And he's explaining it's not going to be easy to beat Roman. I might have to dip into something I haven't done in a long time. And off in the background is the maniacal Seth Rollins in his ridiculous suit, laughing at Edge's words. He said, Roman's got your number, and I'm going to be cheering you on to win so I can cash in and finish what I started in 2014 when I had my boot on your neck but didn't pull the trigger.
I actually liked Rollins here. Like typically the man I just find incredibly obnoxious, but maybe it's coming off of this week's episode of Loki where I'm just like a bit more open-minded to kind of like offbeat performances. And I thought Rollins, the laughing thing was totally worked. When he got serious though is when I really started to like this segment. He had some great lines here referencing the segment from 7 years ago that they've still yet to replay, but it's okay if you know you know. And then talking about cashing in on the guy who made the match famous. So I think they're doing a pretty good job with this program and getting a really good head start on it.
I would like to see them dial it back a bit with Seth Rollins, but this is clearly the direction they're going. And to your point, I think they should air that segment, but wait till you're in the SummerSlam cycle. So that can wait till next week. And it's just got to be a quick highlight to refresh people. It has been 7 years, but I like the idea that they are leaning on something historical. That is not typically in the MO when it comes to storytelling.
Yes, absolutely. And a storyteller like Edge will make great use of it. So I look forward to the feud.
Now they have to edit that segment around Christian.
I think they'll still keep him.
Sami Zayn comes out. He notes that he has been excluded from Money in the Bank and that these fans in the building, the new set, the lights, they are all here as a distraction from the conspiracy against him. But finally, I have you people in my corner that have seen me persecuted. So he tells all the fans in Houston to stand up and he tries to get a justice for Sammy chant going. And Pat McAfee says, I don't hear too many voices. I certainly did hear a lot of voices. I think this chant was about to take off. And then Sammy just cuts it off, calling them yeehaws here in Texas. Dude, this guy was great. He was just a maestro out here with this crowd.
I thought it was actually risky him doing this, asking the crowd to chant for him. It got going, but I don't know how much. Like this was a rather like obedient crowd, who was cheering for the heels or cheering for the baby faces and booing the heels. You had a few select out there, but I still thought it was rather risky.
This was a much more chantable phrase than belt collector, belt collector.
Well, you watch some of these. I predict Arthur Ashe is when they'll actually execute it.
So he wants this briefcase lowered and given to him now. and he is not leaving here until justice is served. And with that, Finn Balor makes his main roster return, interrupting and lays out Sami Zayn, shotgun dropkick, coup de grace, and Finn Balor is back. He is on SmackDown.
I really like having Balor on SmackDown. The show needs main event baby faces. Roman needs guys to face, and Finn Balor coming off of NXT to me feels very fresh. I was a little disappointed that Balor didn't get a chance to speak here, and I do recognize that this is only the first week, but to me, it's important to show that this is a very different Finn Balor than the one we last saw him on the main roster as. One of the big changes about this Finn Balor since his trip down to NXT is his new personality, and I don't really get a sense that somebody watching this, if they didn't watch NXT, would have gotten that sense. But it's only 1 week, and I hope next week they make up for that.
Do you want to hear the craziest stat?
Sure.
Next weekend, Finn Balor turns 40.
Not that crazy. I mean, the man's been around for a while.
The
he
man
certainly looks great.
Well, he's in prime WWE main event in the age bracket for a title.
Yes, that is true. Yeah.
Tamina and Natalya had a non-title match with Shotzi and Nox. So we're doing they beat the champions. So now they're going to have to beat the champions again.
It's ridiculous. They have to beat the champions 3 times to win these belts.
Yes. It's like tapping your heels in Wizard of Oz. I don't know what happened in this match because my ears were bleeding from Liv Morgan and Zelina Vega for the entire 3.5 minutes here. I will say, just their instructions must have been just go out there and argue with one another. But dude, it was painful for the entire duration.
The only time we get to see talent perform unscripted on WWE TV, I mean, unless you're a top star, but if you're on the level of a Liv Morgan or a Zelina Vega, the only time you get to talk without a script is when you do these guest commentary spots. And in many cases, they are arguments to only have them speak with scripts because this went off the rails. Liv is supposed to be, to me, the top babyface, at least on the SmackDown side, going into Money in the Bank. She was not likable on commentary at all here. I found her really obnoxious. Her whole thing was like, I beat you, and I beat you, and then I beat you too. It was not, I think, the type of humble character that the storyline kind of demands.
We did get some play-by-play here because when Tegan Nox hit a senton in the corner, Pat asked, what was that? A flying shooting star bomb? Liv corrected him, flying cannonball backflip. Holy Christ. So Liv and Vega, they start fighting, which at least got them off commentary. And then Nox catches Natalya with an inside cradle in 323. So a couple more weeks of this, maybe they'll get a title shot. But as we've learned, the programs that Natalya and Tamina start, the challengers rarely end up getting their title matches. They're more likely to be broken up and move shows than get a title shot.
Well, since these two are moving up, we hope that they'll follow through with this one. But they did say if they won this one, they would get a title shot. So that's probably coming up next week or the week after, soon.
Or weeks from now. We'll find out. Tamina killed Vega with the super kick on the floor, and then Tamina missed Liv going into the steps. Liv attacked Natalya, ending with the double knees and pointing to the briefcase. And that's how the segment ended. So they're putting the emphasis on Liv Morgan, at least at the end of this segment. Bianca Belair brushed past Rude and Ziggler in the back, and that was Rude and Ziggler's entire appearance on tonight's show. And that takes us to the SmackDown Women's Championship match between Belair and Carmella.
Can you explain this to me? Okay, so this backstage little interaction between Rude and Ziggler. It was Rude and Ziggler asking Bianca Belair to tell Carmella that they said hi. And Rude specifically wanted to know if Carmella has a sister, right? So this is supposed to, like, I suppose be some sort of play off of Carmella calling herself the most beautiful woman in the WWE. So now not only is she calling herself that, we're supposed to believe that the roster in the back believes that to be the case as well, and they're trying to, catch her attention that way. Is that the story? She's not just delusional. She actually is the most beautiful woman in the WWE.
Well, yes, the heels buy this.
Right. Okay.
But what
Beyond that,
what weird game though to try and go through the rival of
so
Carmella.
so that is the thing. Be that like it's fine. Yeah. Okay. Have the heels like want to I don't know date Carmella. Sure. But I don't know why you do this with Bianca Belair. Like it just like to me, I feel like there's so many other people that you could have just, well, it's because Bianca's talking to Carmella, but to me, it like puts that attention away from Bianca. I feel like I mean, they should be fawning over Bianca, you know, like instead of just using her as sort of like telephone to talk to the girl that they actually want to date.
Well, she's married. They have morals.
Well, isn't Carmella dating somebody too? Not in
Not on
story, I
SmackDown.
guess. You're right. The character of Carmella is
The
not.
yes, the character. They're not is not involved, at least on here. Although tonight, the character of Baron Corbin is suddenly married with a child. So that was new information for the character.
Was he not before?
There's been no mention of a Baron Corbin wife prior
Oh,
to tonight.
no. Baroness.
So early on, after Belair chases her, Belair does her usual taunt, and Pat McAfee informs us Belair is just saying, "Kiss my ass." That was all over the place on this show. I don't know. I didn't know what to make of him on
You're
this
allowed
program.
to say "kiss my ass" on Fox, aren't you?
Yeah, you certainly can. It was just more so Pat McAfee's delivery that was rather amusing.
I liked them. I liked them.
Carmella hit a top rope Hurricane Rana and then went for the leech. She had the one-arm guillotine, and Pat McAfee compared it to Conor McGregor going for it on Saturday. I would argue Carmella had a better chance here because she applied it with a closed guard.
That is right. Yeah, and they weren't up against the cage.
No, this was not a bad strategy by Carmella. Belair deadlifted her, though, into a vertical suplex, so Dustin could have learned from that particular escape. And it was identified as a Davey Boy Smith delayed vertical suplex by Pat.
You think intentional?
I mean, he had probably just seen him an hour and a half before this.
Maybe.
Carmella grabs her by the ponytail to kick at her. And then, in a first, Belair makes her comeback with her hair, whipping Carmella in the stomach to set up the KOD and wins in 11 minutes and 11 seconds. So the comeback was the hair whip.
Her secondary move now is the hair whip.
It'll be the
And
finisher by the fall.
sure. Yeah, it'll be her ultimate finisher, like her burning hammer. Her the one she only pulls out on rare occasions. I think it's great. I actually thought this was a good match. Now that she's been in the role for a few months, I felt Bianca here felt very comfortable, felt like a very confident champion. She feels like somebody who feels like she's deserving of the role and not just somebody who's playing the role. Crowd was with her from the beginning, and I feel like they've honed in on like several key things about her matches that help her stand out from the rest. One being that really good display of power with that vertical deadlift, delayed vertical suplex coming off the guillotine, and the hair whip tease and execution got a great reaction. Everybody remembers that Sasha Banks spot. So them using it now on a regular basis, I think is really great. I think Carmella did a great job in this match too. She was not afraid to work a bit more snug, hard slap off the top, grabbed everybody's attention immediately. This was never meant to be a big money match, but I think as a TV match, it's perfect. It was simply meant to showcase Bianca Belair in front of a live crowd, and I thought Carmella provided a great opponent for that role.
Yeah, and I think now this clears the way for whatever Belair's program is for SummerSlam, and you shoot that angle next week.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Sasha.
I think they've set the table for it with the showing the SB footage throughout the week. I think it makes a lot of sense next week for Sasha to make her return and confront her. I think that's pretty simple, and the rematch is in Vegas.
Yep. Beyond that, like it could be, I suppose it could be Becky. I almost feel like you saved the Becky one because like Sasha Bianca is hot right now. The rematch is hot right now. You're gonna do it in front of fans. I think you do it now.
You also need some stars on Raw badly.
Yes.
Like that Raw women's division is like, where are you going next? Well, with that one,
Well, but Seth is on SmackDown. Do you think that plays into anything?
I think it's less of a issue now. I mean, that traditionally they have tried to keep couples together, but again, it's like we are going back to events. It's also not the full schedule where it would mean, 4 shows a week and you're on the road for 5 of those, for instance.
Well, I'm curious about Becky's schedule too now. Now that I mean, she's got a brand new baby at home. Do they? And she is the level of star where I could see them giving her a relaxed schedule.
It's
So
possible. Like it might, for logistical reasons, mean she's on SmackDown, and in that case, that is a fresh match with Bianca. But yeah, then I could not see Sasha and Becky being on the same show. Like I do think you want to distribute that star power. Chad Gable and Otis are in the back. They teach all 5 senses at the Alpha Academy. We see Grown Man duck. We feel the tension. We hear them whisper. We can taste Otis's victory over Cesaro. And then Otis asks, "What is that smell?" We smell fear. This sounds like an awful t-shirt coming our way to WWE Shop.
like the 5 senses. Yeah, it's pretty bad. This was a pretty bad promo. Um, and I don't know. This gimmick hasn't really bothered me so much. Beyond I think it being just completely ineffective trying to rebrand Otis as this like dominant threat. But I thought this promo actually was pretty bad from Gable.
It didn't get better. Cesaro walked in and says, "I smell bull." And they bring up this list that Otis made. I don't remember this list at all. Apparently, it was introduced last week. Otis and attacks Cesaro, injuring his ribs. That would be the injured body part going into their match. Toni Storm promo. She will be debuting next Friday. And next Friday is the unique episode that will be both from Cleveland and the, the Loud Festival in Miami.
Right, sure, yeah. They didn't mention that on this
They
show.
did. They did air a
Oh, they
promo
did?
for it. Yeah. And
Oh,
they
I
did
must have
show
skipped it.
like footage of the festival and stuff, and noting that it would be from both locations next week.
Oh, okay.
Otis and Cesaro. Otis hit the world's strongest slam, then ran into the corner, missing Cesaro. And then Gable ran in and German suplexed Cesaro for the DQ in 1:07. Gable was hit with a pop-up uppercut, hit with the swing, and then Otis beat up Cesaro with an avalanche and the Otis bomb, which he yelled, "For the Academy." Welcome back.
Sure.
Yes. I've been waiting to see Otis in front of live fans and how the Academy would get over.
Yeah. This program is interesting because I mean Cesaro after main eventing a pay-per-view with Roman Reigns, I think he's settling down now in this area of your Otis's, and I don't exactly know what the intent of this program is. Is it to give a big opponent for Cesaro to beat to continue to elevate him, but in a slower level this time, or is it to have Otis beat Cesaro to elevate Otis? I mean, judging by the amount of promotion, video work they're giving Otis, I'm willing to bet that Otis is going to be the one beating Cesaro in this feud. And I think that'd be pretty awful because I think Otis, if he started off as this character, maybe they stand a chance. They're trying to like push him as like a little Vader. But at this point, man, they need a lot more work to have us forget about the Otis that was before. So I don't know.
I don't know, Way. I think we're in the process of what's the next character to make us forget about this one.
For Otis, you mean?
Yes, for Otis.
Yeah.
Kayla's interviewing Paul Heyman, who talks about Edge. He sinned tonight, and he will confess and atone for those sins on Sunday. Big E interrupted, making fun of what Edge did to Reigns earlier. So, if nothing else, putting Big E in kind of the crosshairs of Heyman and by de facto Roman Reigns. So this could prove to be a segment that does have some reasoning behind it, other than just a random interruption.
Yes, definitely.
Out comes Emo Corbin. He has a whole video package recapping his misery. He's lost everything: his crown, his car, his investments, and his savings. And now the bank is threatening to foreclose on his house. His 2-year-old daughter is sick from eating spaghetti out of a can instead of Wagyu beef. And worst of all, they might have to move in with his wife's parents. The good news is you can help me. I've started a crowdfunding site, Corbin Fund Me, where his goal is $100,000, and tells the audience, don't tell me that all of you in Texas are as cheap as everyone else around the world. He gets on his knees and begs. What did you think about the Corbin Fund Me segment here?
Well, we were wondering what this entire like emo Corbin thing was leading up to. There are rumors that Happy Corbin was a trademark. At least this week, that doesn't seem to be the case. Instead, I get the sense that this was all leading up to, their and maybe Vince's um, interpretation of how he feels about people asking for handouts through crowdfunding campaigns. Here's Baron Corbin putting up a fake crowdfunding campaign as a heel, asking for donations for frivolous things, of course. I'm into the angle now. It is surprisingly contemporary. And I think it's a great way. Of course, I don't necessarily completely, feel like I don't, if there is sort of like a message
I think
behind
there
it.
is a certain like mean-spiritedness to this that you just outlined there of what is Vince McMahon's idea of broken down wrestlers that do not have money after destroying their bodies for this
Mhm.
industry. And let's not, for those that want to give the benefit of the doubt, let's dial it back to October when Baron Corbin was also on the kickoff show, scripted to mock Jeff Jarrett's sobriety. So this is not a company that I don't think has done a whole lot to earn the benefit of the doubt either.
Sure. Yeah. But as a way
Sorry,
for a
that was Elias. That was Elias doing the Jarrett bit on the kickoff show, as I recall, because they did a song for it.
But as a way for a heel to get heat, I thought Corbin played it like they made Corbin play it really well by, kind of giving these kind of backhanded insults, not just to the crowd, but out here to Kevin Owens in his way. It was a much more like now we know what the Corbin character is. And I think
He's doing
I
enough subtleties to make you very clear to not have any sympathy for this version. And dude, since he started this character, like I think Corbin has played it very well.
uh sure. I
Dude,
mean,
I
it
think
was
this
a
Corbin, this is like a departure from the prior Corbin that I think was just go away. Like this is
sure.
something that at least, dude, this guy is at least committing to this whole bit.
Yeah. I mean, I can't really say like good does not necessarily mean the acting was, Daniel Day-Lewis, okay? But was it effective? I mean, tonight was your barometer, and tonight it was definitely effective.
I'm not looking for Daniel Day-Lewis on this show. Give me prime Leslie Nielsen and I'll take it.
Okay, all right.
Kevin Owens interrupts. This audience goes nuts. Uh, Kevin Owens, I cannot imagine seeing a happier man than Kevin Owens. This guy, they should have trademarked the happy nickname for because that is what he was walking out here.
Happy Owens. Yeah.
Happy Owens. He was screaming at the adulation of this crowd. Corbin asks Owens for help, says, we're a lot alike. Kevin, I know you have money, and I know you don't spend it on your wardrobe. And with that, Owens hits the stunner. Crowd went nuts, and this was a fun little segment.
I'm into it. I'm into this Corbin. He needs
Yes.
a funny name now.
Baron Corbin.
Oh, Barren.
Yes, yes, that is it.
Okay.
And then that takes us to the main event, our four-way with Owens, Big E, Nakamura, and Seth Rollins. Everyone gets their entrances. They put a big emphasis on the entrances here because the crowd was into pretty much everyone on this show.
The entrances were the draw, especially Shinsuke Nakamura's. The first time doing the Rick Boogs thing, and the first time in a long time since he's had his old music back without the rap version attached to it. And the crowd were singing along. McAfee was dancing on the table. Felt big.
Seth is just going to let the other three fight it out. So he goes to the outside of the apron and Big E spears him to the floor. Owens dives, and then Nakamura just comes off the apron with a knee. The man knows how to work smart in this day and age.
Well,
And
yeah.
we go to a commercial like instantly. This is where they did promo next week with the Rolling Loud Festival in Miami. and the matches that will be in Cleveland. And we'll know Tony Storm is on the show next week.
Interesting. Cool.
Rollins brings a ladder inside because they've got the whole Money in the Bank setup. Owens then yanks Rollins down the ladder, and Owens climbs it on the floor, comes off with an elbow drop, putting Nakamura through the desk. Pat McAfee loses his mind, and the camera guy that's at the low angle shooting Owens coming off does like a 360 flip, which was actually pretty cool and was probably a complete accident. It looked like total chaos here. And then Rollins
awesome.
Just hits Big E with a stomp on the ladder and pins him in 8:02 with Cole announcing, builds momentum for Sunday. And then Rollins, as is contractual obligation, climbs the ladder, takes the briefcase, as Michael Cole says, we are back and we are home, with our usual cliche going into Money in the Bank. And that was the show. A pretty eventful SmackDown, I would say. I wouldn't say like a massive newsworthy show. You had Balor coming back, but a show that moved. The 2 hours that went by very quick, hot crowd, and just setting the table for Sunday, where I think people are expecting a really big weekend and probably subsequent Raw on Monday night to get through this pay-per-view. You've got crowds back, and what are your key angles to shoot for SummerSlam? That it'll probably be a big couple of days for the company.
The story of the show was the crowd. So I think loading it up with NXT call-ups and things like that would have been poor timing beyond just, I think, the initial excitement. It would have taken the focus away from Money in the Bank. You would have forgotten about the debut by Money in the Bank is just not, the go-home show is not the right time to debut. Balor being here, I think, adds a bit of talk, a bit of conversation coming out of it. So I think it works. But I think you continue to see these call-ups in the weeks ahead. As far as this main event goes, it wasn't so much like a match that I think, you have to look at.
It was really entrances and the Big Owen spot.
Big spots, it was like the crowd cheering for these guys, and then Owens doing that spectacular dive. Nakamura, I thought, worked with a really different energy tonight. It felt like he was on. Rollins is awesome as always. The fact that Big E got pinned, he definitely moved up a few notches to, in terms of my likelihood of who probably will win that match. Because I don't think you pin Big E for no reason. You know what I mean? So I think he'll probably have at least a very memorable, good performance. He will be booked well coming out of Sunday. But overall, really enjoyed the show. Again, the crowd adds so much. It felt like all the performers felt that this was a special show for them. And I don't really have much to complain about. I even like the Baron Corbin stuff.
So the card for Sunday, just to quickly go over it, Reigns and Edge for the Universal title, Lashley and Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship, Rhea Ripley against Charlotte Flair for the Raw Women's title. Women's ladder match has Asuka, Naomi, Alexa Bliss, Nikki Ash, Liv Morgan, Zelina Vega, Natalya, and Tamina. Men's match, Ricochet, John Morrison, Riddle, Drew McIntyre, Big E, Kevin Owens, Nakamura, and Seth Rollins. AJ Styles and Omos versus the Viking Raiders for the Raw tag titles. And on the kickoff, the Mysterios versus the Usos for the SmackDown tag titles, with 7 matches for Sunday in Fort Worth.
I think it's a card that is being pushed off of the ladder match results, but primarily the men's ladder match as far as in-ring goes. I think Bobby Lashley versus Kofi is a very well-built title match that I think we all know the result of already. Nonetheless, I hope it's a substantial match and it's not just Bobby Lashley squashing Kofi Kingston, because that would be a shame. Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair, I think despite what we felt about the feud, the match could be good. I hope
if they have a non-bullshit finish, I'm sure they're going to go out and have a very good match. I'm expecting
change?
Pardon?
Can you see a title change in that?
I could. Yeah, that's a possibility. I don't think that would be great for Rhea Ripley. She's gotten off to a really rough start on Raw. That losing the title so quick, but it also is not out of the realm of possibility either.
Well, I mean, if there is a Becky Lynch return, what's the match you make? Would it be Becky Charlotte or Becky Rhea?
Or a 3-way.
Or a 3-way, sure. But Edge and Reigns, I think, will be really good. Edge has been fantastic. you know, in any big match performance that he's had.
And in the Rollins promo, I mean, he did note that he was going to be cheering on Edge so that he could cash in. So that really does give the indication they're going to do at least the men's, if not both of the ladder matches early before your title matches so that you can have that tease of a potential cash in by doing the title matches later.
That is true. I could also see them completely forgetting that Rollins was scripted to say that and just changing up on the day of.
If they start the show with that men's match, that is going to be a very high bar. Like, I don't know if anyone's going to be able to top that ladder match, but it is going to be a rabid crowd for Sunday. That crowd wise, I don't think that's going to hurt, but just bell to bell match quality, I think the ladder match is the match to top on Sunday. I have very high hopes for that one.
Yeah, we're putting a lot of expectations on that one.
Yeah, if the Miz is all over this match in the wheelchair, it's going to really put a damper on my viewing of this.
I've enjoyed the wheelchair spots.
They have to work him into a spot. I just don't need to see him all over the match. Okay, so there you go. That is the card for Sunday. If you want to chat about that, you are welcome to. Tonight, the poll gives this show a 7.37 out of 10. And we will go to some of the written feedback, but let us open the phone lines.
Phone lines are open, everybody. Just raise your hand up in the Zoom room and we will get to you. And let's start off here with Brian. Brian, welcome to the show. What's going on?
Oh, thank you. Didn't expect to be first. Another great show tonight from you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just, wow, you guys, after Wednesday's Dynamite crowd and tonight's SmackDown crowd, that Delta variant is going to be a bitch if it ever makes it here in full force. So hopefully stupidity subsides.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's like there have been plenty of shows that have opened up, and
yeah,
I can't necessarily blame people for going to these shows and, you know, living by the code that their jurisdiction is allowing them to live by.
Oh yeah, I totally hear you on that. Yeah, I was at MLW on Saturday, so that was a pretty packed crowd there. I did wear a mask just to be safe. But then again, I went to the movies last Thursday and did not wear a mask because I felt fairly safe because that's just like within my region. Whereas in Philadelphia, people are coming from all over. Yeah, also that massive screen at the entrance. Hopefully that's recurring because, you know, with Cleveland next week, that crowd will have to watch half the show on that screen, presumably.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how because they have like promoted like matches at the festival, not just like walk-on appearances and segments, like matches. And that's going to be tough for the crowd in Cleveland. And it's also not a given like the crowd in Miami is necessarily going to be into wrestling. So it's going to be an interesting show. I think it's worth trying. I like ideas that are outside of the box, but we'll see how it plays out. It's going to come down to the crowd's reception and the patience of the crowd in Cleveland that, yeah, to your point, Brian, they're there to see a 2-hour show and portions of it are going to be watching a screen.
and who will they put on that show? You know, it would have to be people you would think recognizable enough to, you know, a casual fan base.
Imagine the fans in Cleveland expecting to see Toni Storm and she's at the Rolling Loud Festival in Miami instead. That'd be a kick in the balls. Speaking of kicking the balls, NXT UK this week, they were advertising Walter versus Ilya Dragunov for the episode on the 22nd, next week's show. And they did this big press conference at the start of this week's show, introduced by Triple H via satellite. But then later in the show, they reported a backstage altercation that they did not show where Walter injured his hand and is not clear to compete. So I assume they're waiting to hold off on this Walter Dragunov rematch until they're able to do it in front of a crowd. So that's just some interesting.
Well, the report that was out there is like it's a legit injury that that he's dealing with. So I think it was just like their workaround because he did have a legitimate injury.
Okay. Okay, that explains it. But still, I think a match this big, you want to try to do in front of a crowd, I think. And then one last note, or actually two last notes. First off, rest in peace to Biz Marquis. Very sad to lose him.
Wow.
Yeah. And also, regarding the NXT talk from Rewind-A-Dynamite, Duke Hudson, I don't see him as Steve Rogers or even Australian Steve Rogers. I don't even see him as a John Walker. I see him as a Red Guardian.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, a
Explain.
wide range.
That's just my hunch. So thanks again, guys.
Thank you,
Okay.
Brian.
All right. Do you get that reference, John?
No.
Okay, you will. You will this weekend.
No,
Black
there you
Widow
go.
review coming out on Tuesday, everybody. Let's go up next to Hansi. Hansi, what's up?
Yo, what's going on, guys? Good show as always.
Thanks.
SmackDown, yo, I gotta say, it wasn't like the greatest show, but it was cool to see the fans live. Yeah, I was excited because again, what's it called? I like where they planted some of the seeds because I do see Rollins and Edge. I can see Rollins costing Edge the title. That's what I see. I don't think he's gonna win it. My dark horses are probably Riddle. I think there's a chance Riddle could win it, or they could do Big E. I hope they go with Big E because that would be kind of cool. But now that they announced that Goldberg is coming back, it kind of ruins my whole fantasy because I was like, Big E's going to avenge Kofi and Woods and go after Lashley. But it's all right. Again, what they call as long as Lashley wins in 5 minutes, I'm cool. I'm cool with it. You know what I mean? I know people are going to complain about Goldberg, and that's I get that, but I think it's kind of cool if you have your current champions kind of destroy him. Like it made Drew a lot more credible, and it's gonna make Lashley a lot more credible if they do it that way. You know what I mean? So I might as well have that rather than Brock versus Goldberg. And before I go, I'll just say that I really enjoyed AEW this week. That was probably the show of the week for me. I can't say enough good things about the Adam Page and Kenny Omega thing, and I'm glad they're starting to build. I really do hope they do. They're obviously going to wait for All Out, but I'm glad they're starting months ahead, a little bit months ahead, because already, man, people are into this, and I swear, this could be one of their best storylines, because this has been a thing that they've been building for so long. Where again, everyone can relate to it. I can relate to it. I'm afraid to fail, so I'm living vicariously to Adam Page, basically. So I'll leave you guys with that. I just wanted to chime in quickly. I didn't want to take much of your time, but thank you for letting me on the air. Thank you.
Hangman
Thanks,
Hansi.
Hangman Hansi. Wow. Hansi, what was he talking about before?
Goldberg and Lashley.
Goldberg. Right.
I mean, it's going to be, largely in the build-up. I'm not going to go off of what people's immediate reaction is going to be to that news versus what are the live reactions going to be. What is does Goldberg have that spark that is going to lift up TV numbers for the next month? I mean, that's what this is going to be graded upon. As I mentioned today, there's a larger issue at play that you do have to go to this direction with a Goldberg. And I don't think you can go to it just nonstop of just this guy walks into these title shots, but that's kind of on your storytelling. But I can see the frustration, but this is going to be graded based upon what they can do over the next 4 weeks. And if this becomes a signature match for SummerSlam, or if it's something that really doesn't catch on after they saw a very similar setup just a couple of months ago at the Rumble.
Yeah. I mean, regardless of I think what our audience might think, what I might think about that match, and how little we might be looking forward to it, it's a match designed to attract the casuals, and ultimately it probably will be the most high-profile match Bobby Lashley has had during this championship reign. There is going to be, I think, a certain magic that this audience will really react to, especially live, when you see those two guys face to face for the very first time. So I look forward to at least some of the segments. I certainly look forward to MVP.
I was going to say, you've got, unlike the Drew program, you have the heel manager and MVP and when Goldberg has been left to his devices for some of these programs, he can be a very good promo. When he is not, it's very obvious when Goldberg has been scripted and it's a mess. But when he is left to just cut that Bill Goldberg promo, it can be very effective, that he was able to demonstrate many times in the Brock program.
We go up next to Nick. Nick, you're on the show. What's going on?
What's going on, guys?
Hey.
I mean, I thought tonight was amazing, purely because of the crowd, like you guys were saying. And I can always judge how much I enjoyed a show based off of how much I wanted to be there in the moment. And the first 15 minutes of the show from like 8 o'clock to like 8:13, 14 is were just entrances and people going absolutely bananas. So, and that Edge, I think that Edge entrance, that Edge pop is going to be one that the company can go back to and feature in videos for a long time to come and promos for a long time to come. I think that was an entrance for the ages and like a return to this environment for the ages.
Yeah.
On the Goldberg thing, I'm never, too up in arms when Goldberg comes back. I think I'm very much on the same wavelength of John. I know why they're doing it. I think Lashley is a pretty interesting person to match him up with, because while I think Goldberg has been very good in terms of, like John was saying, like unscripted promos and when he's kind of his natural self, I think it's going to be interesting to see who takes like the brunt of the, build up workload in that. Because with Drew, I think he really took a lot of the, the workload in trying to build up to that match. And I think Bobby cut an amazing promo on Monday, but that was the first time where I really connected to him as a character. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of go into building that story about around those two characters, and especially on Raw, which is going to need a lot of, I think, facelifting in front of a live crowd next week.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to think about what kind of storyline angle they take towards it. And let's also remember, we're going to be dealing with a different Bobby Lashley. After Monday, this is a brand new, more serious, more aggressive Bobby Lashley without the VIP lounge, without Lashley's ladies, attached to him. So if this whole thing is done to continue to elevate this very different, very effective Bobby Lashley and MVP combo, then you know what? I'm for it.
Yeah. Oh, that's all I have to say. It just seems like a really exciting time to be following wrestling again. I'm very excited for Money in the Bank. I'm a bit bittersweet because Money in the Bank 2019 was the last WWE show I got to attend. So I always look at that pay-per-view quite fondly. But I'm excited to hear you guys cover it on Sunday and see, it's a big, big time in wrestling. So appreciate you guys as always.
Cool. Well, enjoy the show, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick, and hope you guys, Double Plus patrons, you all have access live on Sunday, right after the pay-per-view for our post-show. And, of course, it's free and available for everybody after the fact. Let's go up next to MJ. MJ, how you
Hello,
doing?
guys. How are you?
Very well. Very well. What's on your mind?
I see a Brandon Thurston lurking in maybe in the Zoom call. I don't know if it's really him, but he makes me a little nervous to call in with him there. Anyway, shout out WrestleNomics and highly recommend it. Yeah. Love when Brandon and John chop it up and talk business of WWE. Looking forward to the next earnings call in a few weeks.
Yes, yes, we will hopefully schedule that.
So why have I called in? Well, I felt like the need after Wednesday's feedback and the Dark Order convo to just come in and give my thoughts. And I want to start by saying I have a buddy at work who is a diehard New York Knicks fan. And over the last 5 years, I have trashed the Knicks in front of him. Our coworkers have trashed the Knicks. And there's nobody who enjoyed that New York Knicks playoff run this year like my buddy from work, my coworker. That's how I feel about the Dark Order. At the lowest points, people trashed it. It was maybe like a few months into TV. It was all in the beginning. They told us, like always, the elite said, we're going to listen to the fans. The Dark Order has evolved through many iterations, some of it tragically so. But as a fan that bought into this BTE bit of what's this mysterious join the Dark Order website, cult, whatever, to see this thing from where it was to now, that is why I just go back to that period of time where everyone wanted this to be, gone. And I'm like, this thing just started, and I trust the people behind this because all they have ever done are given us stories like the Golden Lovers and the Elite and Adam Page and Kenny Omega. So why wouldn't they be successful at building an act that they were giving dedicated BTE time to? I know not everyone watches BTE, but the night that everyone goes back to with them, that December 18th show, is actually when John Silver and Alex Reynolds became part of the group. John Silver has been nothing but a standout star on BTE for 2 years, to the point where it almost shocks me how over he is, because it's the least likely person I would have thought they'd get over. So yeah, it's comes from a standpoint of real fandom, and I'm happy that everybody's celebrating them now, but everyone will trash them when they're bad again, and I'm sure they'll be bad and I'll be critical, but having a belief in something is what fandom's about. So that's where it's at for me.
So yeah, I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from. I mean, they are your home team. I mean, maybe even, what you would consider to be your favorites. And it seems like you have a loyalty attached to these particular set of wrestlers that, you'll appreciate no matter what. Um, and I do feel though a part of fandom is also calling out what is not good. And people doing that on that particular episode of Dynamite was simply saying the truth of what they felt when they were watching that particular segment. And I think those things can really coexist, and people shouldn't be shamed for calling out something that was truly bad at the time. Even though it's good right now, we can say both. It's simply the truth of how that segment was. I feel like the Dark Order, the performers themselves would tell you that probably wasn't really good at that time.
It was like it's a credit
Right.
that they acknowledged like where they were going, where the Dark Order that got over was nothing resembling the end of 2019. And I think realizing like you have to acknowledge that hard shift that the group ended up needing to take and needing several months to find what was going to work for them. But being the top heel group that was going to be feuding with the Elite, like it was a very clear sign that this was not what the audience wanted. And to the credit of the company, they acknowledged that, and that feud was done instantly.
The evolution would not have occurred without that fan reaction.
I agree with that. I look back at that time again. I think that's December 19. They go on October 19. We're like 2 months into TV, 3 months into TV, and everything at this promotion. And this has been amazing to see, like this last week of news with the rating and the sales in New York. It's like this is a 2 or 3 year old promotion. I don't know what people exactly expected out of the gates, but like you either have belief and trust in the people doing this. It's not just the Dark Order. Everyone knows I'm a mark for the Elite, but I'm a mark for the Elite because since I've started following them very closely, 2016, all they've ever done is delivered. So I look at it like, yes, you needed the fans to be critical for there to be the hard shift. I agree with that completely. And it was fair, but it was also a bit unfair to like kind of throw all these guys out and be like, hey, all these guys got to go. Don't want them on TV. Some of the stuff that was said about them, like online, we talk about stuff like
okay,
online,
but
social
MJ, come
media.
on, like you're going off Twitter comments here. No one was advocating on this show to fire everybody. Like you can make an argument out of anyone off of Twitter. I mean, let's reel it in a little here.
There was
they didn't give up on them.
There was a prevailing sentiment of wrestling fans in the wrestling internet community, a prevailing sentiment that these guys got to be gone. You can go back and I think your own comments were we can't give participation trophies to people. So
okay, well, like they were not a main event act, and that was very evident.
Yeah, and all I felt was that at the time they were going to get built into something that could be worthy of a good feud with a top tier group like the Elite at the time, and obviously now they're doing it. And we can't forget that the Brody involvement and the sentimental connection that's being created for the fans, like it's tragic, and it's really unfortunate that is something that's happened. But again, I go back to that hometown team. Like there's now history built with this group that, yeah, part of the history is how bad it was in the beginning. And it's just, that's part of being, to me, being a fan of something. And, I think everyone has that with their own hometown teams and stuff like that. For me, it's become the Elite or whatever. And the evolution has been very fun to watch unfold.
All right. Well,
I'm happy you have that, MJ, but I also don't really think it's fair to, criticize others for not feeling that way at the beginning and not being necessarily on board with this team the entire time.
It's not criticizing, it's just remembering when it was like, only a few people that believed.
All right.
That it could be done.
Well, we all have our favorites, so
yeah, I root for everybody's favorites. And trashing wrestlers at this point, like this should go away. We should all recognize there's a process to everything. It's not always the talent's fault. Some of these guys are super talented in their own right. They got to be put in the right position or be given time to evolve. And that's wrestling right now.
So don't criticize anything.
I think there's a level of criticism. I think there's a level of like going after people viciously and wanting people off TV. That is like, we complain when people get released, but meanwhile, all we did was trash them. And I'm guilty of it, guys. I do it. I've trashed people, and it's like I look back on it. It's like it's so stupid. Why? Let them. They're not in a position to succeed. Direct it at the people that are in a position to put them there. And when they don't,
well, as long as you can understand, though, like you can also paint between the lines that there are people that can criticize stuff, and you can't paint everyone with a broad brush of wanting guys released, for instance. Like there's a lot of in between there as well.
Absolutely.
All right.
Take
Thanks for
care,
the call,
guys.
MJ.
Be well. Be well.
Thank you so much for the call, MJ. Always encourage people to call in when they might disagree with something that we've said about their feedback. So much appreciated. And as always, MJ, let's go to the forum to see who we might disagree with this time around, John.
Let's find out.
Forum.postwrestling.com. Do you want me to start?
Sure.
We go to B from New York, who says, boy, that was fun. Turns out it's not just the MP3s that like some of these guys and gals, huh? Gotta imagine the wait has been worth it to Edge, who is just racking up monster pops. Seemed like Roman couldn't even keep a smile down on that one. Glad they're spreading out some of the surprises and debuts over a few weeks instead of cluttering it on one show. That really made the Finn return stand out. Should be fun to see what kind of crowd shows up on Sunday. I think it'll be a really hot crowd. Like, it's a big show.
Sure, it's going to be a very hot crowd on Sunday. Brandon from Oshawa, it was a solid show, but not because of the crowd, who I thought were kind of disappointing. That's a tough point to make tonight, I think. A show that isn't full of rematches helps a ton. The stars were Corbin and Zayn for me. Both are hilarious. I want to see Corbin slumming it on the streets before the show, begging the crowd for change.
See, he's not the type of poor that is begging the crowd for change. He is his interpretation of poor, which is basically the average for everybody else. That's the joke, right? You know, like him moving in. I mean, it kind of varies because, like, his one line was his children had to eat canned spaghetti instead of Wagyu beef. Moving into your parents, I mean, that's not necessarily like begging for change level. I think like the joke would be him having to like Uber, perhaps, like, you know, I don't know, like take a second job, take the bus. Like that would be his version of begging for change, and he'd be asking people to you know, pay his crowd GoFundMe because he has to now take the bus. Anyway, he also asked John, "Did you feed Max Wagyu beef when he was 2?" Oh, of course, we all eat Wagyu beef.
I don't know if I've ever had.
Oh
to
yeah,
be honest.
not in
Yeah.
Japan. You didn't have it?
Did we? Did we ever go out for that? I don't think I did.
Maybe. It's good, but you know, it's like you need somebody to cook it right because you
Right.
could really fuck it up really easily.
I bet.
Very delicate. All right, we go to Theon Francis, who says, "Good night, John and Way. First time subscriber, all the way from Trinidad. Been a listener of you guys since 2015. Welcome,
Thank
Theon.
you.
You have provided hours of entertainment for me while I'm at work or driving, so thank you. As for the show, I really enjoyed every bit of it. The crowd was hot, and that is mostly what I was looking forward to." Theon from Trinidad. This
There
was
you go.
mostly
That's a
complimenting
satisfied
us.
viewer tonight.
Yeah, great. Thank you. The best feedback.
Okay, and we will go to Muggin. Had some thoughts on tonight's show. Roman Reigns feeding off of a live audience only enhances his overall act. Edge receiving a thunderous reaction was galvanizing, and the opening 6-man tag was solid. Shiny suit Seth is a pompous prick and an effective tease for the Edge Rollins feud. Bianca Carmella was a well-worked TV title match. Finn Balor returning has me concerned because I don't want to see him regress to who he was before his second NXT run. And the main event was a sprint. Given all the talent involved, I expected a 15-20 minute match, but I get why they're holding back for Sunday, which the ladder match should be a strong shoe-in for match of the year. Shinsuke's entrance felt great, hearing the audience sing along as well. May we never go back to the Thunderdome.
Yeah, I hope this match lives up to everybody's expectations. This Money in the Bank.
Are we going to get the Thunderdome playlist on the network? The best of?
Ooh, someday. Yeah, the collection.
All right. Well, there you go. That is all the feedback. So thank you for the calls. Thank you for the feedback in the forum. Saturday night, it is Slammiversary, and Davey Portman and John Cena will be doing that post show, discussing the Kenny Omega, Sami Callihan match and the entire pay-per-view. Who shows up? All of that can be found postwrestling.com. Sunday night,
please finish. Yes.
Sunday night, we will be live right after the pay-per-view for our double ice cap and espresso members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. The Zoom room will be hopping.
Saturday morning, a few hours from now, Martin Bushby is doing something completely crazy. The man is going to stream for 12 hours straight. And he won't be alone. He'll be joined by Benno, I think, throughout almost the entire time. So it'll be quite the addition of the British wrestling experience between those two. And all of our friends from the post wrestling community, many of them will be there, including, I believe, Andrew Thompson might make an appearance. I believe Nate Milton might make an appearance. John Pollock will make an appearance. Robert Pearson, Jordan Goodman, Scrump. A lot of our favorites from the post wrestling community will be joining Martin for a very great cause. So if you want to find all that information, we have it pretty much on all of our social media. So click the link sometime starting anytime 7 a.m. tomorrow on Saturday morning.
Yeah, I'm going on later, so he might be delirious by the time I get on.
I look forward to that, definitely.
So we will all be rooting for Martin and Benno throughout the day on Saturday. You can check that out. And that is it for us. Thanks to everybody for joining us live, listening after the fact. We'll be back on Sunday night. Have a great weekend. That is it. Goodbye.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you for all the calls. They were all tremendous. So thank you for the interaction. A lot of people here today, no doubt, thanks to big edition of the show. So hope to see at least some of you on Sunday, those of you with double access.
Yes, look forward to chatting with all of you. Hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy. Lots of stuff going on. Maybe go out for a bike ride.
Or to Wonderland.
Yeah, it's packed. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. We appreciate it, as always. And no, I'm not riding my bike to Wonderland. That would be way too ambitious, especially in the rain. But that is all.
See ya.